Brian Karem, my old buddy. So good to see you.
Brother.
It has been more than a day. Meanwhile, as you know, because you've been here on Mea Culpa before, the hour goes by just way too quickly. Got a lot to talk about, a lot. So I'm going to jump right into it. Hey, brother, let's start with the DOJ. Back when you were helping me to uncover the weaponization of the Department of Justice for my book, Revenge, how Donald Trump weaponized the United States Department of Justice against his critics. Did you ever think that we'd be watching James Comey potentially be indicted while Trump is back in the White House? I mean, what does it say about accountability, or better than that, the lack of it?
Well, what does it say about America that Donald Trump is back in the White House? That was the one that was, once you get there, once you understand that Donald Trump came back and the reasons that he came back, he ran to stay out of prison. And now that he's in office, he's there to exact revenge on all of his perceived enemies, including Comey. So the weaponization of the DOJ, which we uncovered together during the research for your book, Revenge, this is just a natural extension of what we found then. Donald Trump, while preaching that it was Biden who weaponized the DOJ, of course, it is actually Donald Trump who has weaponized the DOJ. And he will push after, a week before, and this, Michael, this is so telling, a week before the election, I ran into Donald Trump in Detroit. I was speaking at a convention. He was there, politicking for president. And I ran into some of his people, and I'll never forget. I said, so, if he gets back in office, are we all going to prison? Am I going to jail? Is he going to arrest me? He goes, well, don't worry, you're down on the list. And I go, well, that doesn't give me any solace. I'm concerned that there is a list. But the confirmation that there is a list of people that Donald Trump will go after, we know damn well who's on it. And we know damn well there is a pecking order. He wants to go after the ones he hates the most, the first. And of course, Comey is one of them. Look, you and I talk a lot about what you went through. It's the pressure that he's putting on them. It's the mental anguish that you have to go through. Knowing, like, when they walked in with you and said, sign this deal or we're going after your wife. Do this or we'll do that. It's the pressure, the enormous pressure of the federal government being brought to bear on one person for no other reason than to exact revenge. And that's what Donald Trump's about. And that's the frightening part of this.
Yeah, it is. So let me give you a little follow-up here. I want you to walk me through the moment. I asked you to join me in my second book, New York Times bestseller, second book, Revenge, because every door, as I was trying to obtain facts and information, every door was being slammed in my face. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Fear of telling the truth, fear that I may, post their name or what have you. And so I said to you, Brian, do me a favor. You are an investigative journalist. You have been for well over 30 years now.
Yeah, I'm an old fart. 40.
Yeah. Well, just a fart. Meanwhile, so I'm sitting. I can only tell my listeners how many hours were wasted, having fun and making jokes instead of concentrating on the book. But I want you to walk me through the moment that you realized, because without you, I never would have been able to get the information that made this book into a New York Times number, I think, 8 bestseller. I want you to walk me through the moment that you realized that the DOJ had become Trump's personal attack dog for the book.
Well, that's easy. The moment you realize that the DOJ is behind Donald Trump and not the rule of law is when I had your permission to get your information. And the DOJ said, we're not going to do it. The fact of the matter is that, look, there are legitimate problems with FOIA laws. And one of the biggest problems is that FOIA staffs, and that's Freedom of Information Access, the request that you make to get the public information, those staffs are small. And by the way, made smaller by Doge. And there's no reason to do that other than the fact that you don't want to make public information available to the public. So there is an inherent problem there, a systemic problem. But when I have permission from the person I'm seeking the information from, and the person at the DOJ says that I'm not going to give it to you, and you have sources after 20 or 30 years working that, that particular area of the DOJ. And I had very good sources going back to the time when I was with America's Most Wanted. And these people would seek us out because they wanted our help in going after bad guys. So these people have worked with me for years. And when I'm being told off the record, Brian, you're not going to get this information, I'll have to supply it to you surreptitiously because we don't want it out. And by we, they meant who, Donald, and his stooge that was the head of the DOJ at the time. Donald Trump is very good at making sure that his ass is covered and that the rest of us burn. So it was it was almost day one, Michael, when we knew that we were going to I'd have to work all the back channels of information that I've obtained over, 4 decades of doing this kind of crap in order to get the information that we needed. It was unfortunate and it was a crime.
What's crazy, Brian, is the fact that when we first put in that FOIA request, it was extremely limited. It was very specific to the documents that we wanted. And they immediately, well, I shouldn't say immediately, after 7-8 weeks, I finally received back a response that turned around and said that there are no documents that are responsive to your
and we
FOIA
had
request.
A document in our hand already.
I had 4 documents somehow that I had managed to keep, I guess, during the 7 different congressional committee hearings. I had 4 documents. In fact, when I was drafting the initial request under FOIA, I used 2 of those documents as part of the basis.
And they told us they did not exist. They told us that those documents did not exist, though you had them. And that's another heads up right away. First of them lying, saying that they're not going to be able to, they're simply not going to do it. And second, saying not only are we not going to do it, but we don't have them. But the problem with it is once they tell you F off, once they go, hey, we're not going to do it, whatever else they say, damn well it's all going to be a lie because they're compelled by law to do it. And when they refuse you at the face of it and tell you to F off, damn well that whatever else they're going to do, it sure isn't going to comply with the law. So they broken the law from the get-go.
So it was interesting because then Brian said to me, I have a friend, an attorney, who's like number 1 in the country for this, Mark Zaid. Yeah. And you know what? I spoke to him and he said, get him the 4 documents. We're going to file a complaint to get the documents released under FOIA because they're breaking the law. I said, sure. Signed a bunch of documents, gave it to Mark Zaid. He goes ahead, he files the action. All of a sudden, about 4 weeks later, I get a document from them. Dear Mr. Cohen, we apologize for the error in the first communication, whereby it was determined that there were 0 documents relevant to your FOIA request. In fact, after examination, there appears to be, do you remember the number?
Yeah, thousands. I don't remember the exact.
486,000 documents. Yeah. 486,000 documents.
It'll take us in the next 150 years to give them all to you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Now, it was funny because the judge
still not going to give them to you.
The judge turns around and says, it's so many documents, and because the staffing at FOIA, as you said, is so limited, we're going to mandate that they turn over to you a minimum of 500 documents per month. Now, that was 5.5 years ago. And so far, we've received 0. How many documents?
The big goose egg. I'm telling you, all of that, it's 0. I got nothing to give, not going to give it. Yeah, that's what it is. A big nothing. And it's been a nothing burger the entire time. And the fact of the matter is, again, we knew what we were up against the very moment they said no. And when they said, we're not going to do it. And then whatever else they started tap dancing to, and the judge came closest to at least, addressing reality, going, you got him, you got to give him at $500 a month. But then again, what did the DOJ do? Zip. And they have refused to, though we've sued them, though there is there's adjudication in our favor. They still haven't done it. So what you're facing, and that was the first Donald Trump administration, Michael. And there were people that were pushing back against Trump then. Now everyone in his administration is, part and parcel in his, for lack of better words, in his back pocket. So I was going to say, sucking at his hind quarters, but the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of ass kissers in this new administration, and then
you could say that again. There's a lot of people walking around with brown tipped noses. Hey, let me say this: the crazy part
noses,
about
I'm going tongue. They're deep in there. It's
oh boy! So meanwhile, the craziest part about the whole thing is we thought that they were going to have to then turn over these 500 documents. Since that day, as you just said, they came up with every excuse in the book. They actually then said, because it talks about process and method, we have to send these requests, these documents, to 16 different federal agencies to review for redactions to make sure that there's nothing in there that could harm them. So we asked, well, who are the 16? Well, that's classified too. We can't even tell you that. And even the judge turned around. He's like, you've got to be kidding me. To this day, still 5.5 years later, not a single document has been turned over. So the question I really want to ask you off of that sort of story to enlighten my listeners, watching this shit happen today, does it feel like the system learned anything, or are we just repeating the exact same pattern, just faster and a whole lot louder?
Well, I thought you were going to ask me, considering today, do I drink a lot more? But that's it.
By the way, you drank a lot back then anyway.
Yeah, I'm telling you, tough room. So does it make it? It's worse now because there were roadblocks that would slow it down. Today, Donald Trump doesn't give a damn what the law is. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he's got people in place that will allow him to do it. The pushback is minor. Let's take a look at Pam Bondi, for example. And boy, don't you just like to take a look at what she did? She was investigating Donald Trump for income tax evasion for his university in Florida as the attorney general in Florida. She was going to indict him in Florida. He deposited $25,000 in her bank account so she could run for office, and magically she decided not to prosecute Donald Trump. So Pam Bondi is not just a whore, which she is very much, Donald Trump's whore. She's a cheap whore. He got her for $25,000. That's it. That's all she is she's a
Ryan, 5,000 of that $25,000 was mine. You know that? $5,000. $5,000 of that was.
That's even better. That's a better story. Holy shit. That cheap bastard wouldn't even give her 25.
Well, he can't because it would have been over the limit. So
what
he did is he went to his executives and he said, I need a check for $5,000.
And there you go. Rock and roll picture show. Pam Bondi is a cheap whore subsidized by everybody. But today, the fact of the matter is she's there. Kash Patel's there. Tom Homan is around. Robert F. Kennedy, I got a worm in my head. That guy, he's around. None of these people are going to tell him no because they have their own agenda they're pursuing. And Donald Trump facilitates their ability to do that. So they have their tongue firmly deep inside his anal cavity, slurping out whatever they can so that they can spit it out. They're the tail end of the human centipede. And so at the end of the day, it's much faster than it was then. And it's much more dire than it was then. And the end results are much more fatalistic for the United States now than then. People say we're in a constitutional crisis. And I tell them, no, we're not. That's in the rearview mirror. They say we're facing fascism. No, we're not. That's in the rearview mirror. The Constitution doesn't exist. The very fear, the thing that you said, the very poignant thing that you said when I started putting together this documentary is, what if for a few months down the road, what if Donald Trump is successful? Then he will have supplanted the Constitution. And that's exactly what he's done. That's exactly what he's done. The Constitution matters not to him, and therefore it doesn't matter to the people that work for him, and therefore we're all suffering because of it. And that is the end result of us reelecting Donald Trump and putting his fat, flaccid ass back in office. And, I'm to the point now where if I don't laugh at it every day, I'd end up crying because it's so damn bad. And it's only going to get worse. There's a great thing that his niece said, Mary Trump. And I remember these words. She goes, Brian, there is no worst with Donald Trump. Every day is worse. And that's the truth. And then I remember something you told me. We were talking about his kids one time, and you said, Brian, I remember both of those boys came to me and said, I don't want to end up like my dad. And they have. Everything he touches, he destroys. He will burn it all down, everything, to rule over the ashes. That's what we're facing. And this isn't hyperbole. These are facts. These are based on what he's doing today. For example, what did he say at the United Nations? How do you win friends and influence people? What's his hallmark of diplomacy? Telling them all they're going to go to hell and we're the hottest country on the planet? Maybe we're hot because not for any economic reasons, but because we're standing next to the fire of hell. I know a guy, one of the people who was one of the diplomats in New York, he said, we're all going to hell. He goes, I don't have any desire to go to Washington, D.C. So, I mean, that's the way the rest of the world views us.
I want my listeners to understand, Brian Karem's been in this game for a very long time. White House correspondent, I think it was for Playboy magazine, and for other magazines and newspapers as well. But here's the interesting thing. I'm sorry?
And television. That's it.
And television, yes. Yeah. But by the way, nothing for nothing. You have a face for radio and for print. So let me say this, right? Because you are in a very unique group of journalists who had their credentials taken away from the White House because your writing angered the president.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I want to ask you this. When the DOJ or the administration targets journalists, whistleblowers, or political enemies, what's the human cost that people outside the Beltway never see?
Well, that's a good question. There are two of us, me and Jim Acosta, are the ones that face it. First of all, I'd recommend it, if anyone faces Donald Trump, stand up to the bully, much like you did, much like I did. I'm not unique. But the thing is you don't give in to a bully. The human cost of that the human cost either way is the same. But the dividends that you gain by at least standing up is that standing up to the bully puts them in their place. And Donald Trump is not a strong man. He is a weak man, and he is a bully. And at the end of the day, standing up to him and thumping him in the nose is the price you have to pay for being able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. And so the cost that you will pay is the cost that we're all paying. Going after journalists, he says we're the fake news, we're the enemy of the people. No, pal, we are the people. The people in the press are the people, and you're the enemy of the people. That's the realization that you have to come to. But the cost that you pay, let's see, I had my window of my car bashed in, numerous death threats, threats of course, jail, threats of economic ruin. Everywhere you would go, you had to have your head on a swivel, and you still do to some respects. I play in a rock band. And, so when we would play in the band, I would be told by the local cops and the FBI that, I should be wary. There could be violence in the venues where we played, targeting me. So those are all things that you have to face on it's a very visceral level. It's putting your life out in front of a bunch of damn crazies. And you know that as well as I do.
I actually went to prison, and I have my head on a swivel to the point that I need to go, I think, for neck surgery now. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
I fractured a disc in my neck. And then on top of that, the death threats, the swatting, the doxing. They didn't just swat me. They swatted my 90-year-old father and 82-year-old mom.
Oh yeah, they went after my son.
Them.
Yeah, they went after my fucking 25-year-old son. Yeah, and so that what I can tell you is and you know this better than I do. You cannot back down. There is no way that you can. The pain, I did not get into this business to be the center of attention. I got in this business to shine light in dark places. I know that politicians are going to try and put their best foot forward. I'm there to try and shine a light on what they're doing and let the world know, providing information. Everybody says we're in the truth business, and we're not. We're in the fact business. Our job is to provide you facts, and you decide what the truth is from those facts. But we all have to agree on the facts. Donald Trump has destroyed that. And that is when you don't know what facts are anymore, you allow the grifter and the con man into your life in a manner that is completely impossible if we all understand what the facts are. And that's what Donald Trump has done, is destroyed reality to the point where people don't even know what the hell facts are anymore. And if
they question everything.
The only thing unquestionable about Donald Trump is the day he was born. Otherwise, you look it up and there's every fact about him is in dispute now. And who does that benefit? Him. It doesn't benefit us. And you're right. I do more fact checking now than I've ever done on things I already know to be facts, things that I have witnessed myself, just to make sure. And then I have to double check that again, because there are alternative facts. Thank you, Kellyanne Conway, for that wonderful term, you moron. That term that we have to deal with every day. Alternative facts. You've got your facts, I've got mine. No, bullshit. There's one set of facts. And that's
let me ask you this. That's true. That's true. There is only one there's only one truth. There's only one fact. Did you ever witness the DOJ insiders wrestle when you were doing the research on revenge with loyalty to the law versus loyalty to Trump? And I would suspect, knowing you as well as I do, I imagine you had to ask them, how do you justify it to yourself?
Oh, that's a question I ask them every day. And most of the people that I ask that of are no longer there. The fact of the matter is, and there are people that are holding on for dear. I know someone that's been at the DOJ for 30 plus years. And I said, why are you still there? And he goes, the same reason that you're still doing what you're doing, because I have to hold on to the institutional knowledge so that when we get through this, Donald Trump, that we're able to reinstall what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to be. And I get that. I agree with that. I wholeheartedly endorse that, because there has to be someone left, because we live in a time, Michael, the biggest problem I have, we're talking about facts and stuff. The biggest problem I have is that on the internet, in social media, the anonymity of social media, everyone can come across as an expert. Everyone's opinion is equally discussed. And while everyone is entitled to an opinion, not every opinion has equal weight. And so if the doctor comes on and tells me you need a vaccine, I'm going to listen to him before RFK, who has no doctorate, tells me I need a vaccine. On the internet,
he's had Thanksgiving dinner with family members that are doctors.
Yeah, so that makes it.
What makes him an expert?
Yeah, he watched a YouTube video once. I go, no, that was a porno. Stop that. That's not the vaccine we're talking about, pal. So he have that. But then on the internet, people will type, you see them too, and they go after you. You're an asshole, this, and this is what really happened. And they act as if their opinion is fact. And the fact is that a lot of times these are people that haven't gotten their asses out of their parents' basement. The person with 30, 40 years of experience, I will listen to them before I listen to some idiot who either A, just got out of school, or B, doesn't know what they're talking about, or C, is a bot. And that's one of the bigger problems that we have. You see that as well. The big problem is
Yeah.
that institutional knowledge is lacking. So in the DOJ, those who were staying, back to your original question, those guys that are staying and are fighting it, I tip my hat to them, because there are a lot of them that have left, and the people that are there now, a lot of them owe their allegiance to Don first, Don always, Don ultimatum, Don ultimately everything. So that's the scary part.
Hey, so when you were doing all that work for me in terms of speaking to FBI agents, speaking to judges,
and I want you to know, I never billed you for the liquor, but go ahead.
Thank God. And
I saved you thousands.
Tens of thousands. And all of those folks that you have relationships with, 30-year relationships with. Do you recall what they told you about James Comey and my case? What they told you about James Comey and the Steele dossier and his desire within which to lock me into almost like a corner so that they could extract as much negative information on Trump as they could?
Well, that was their goal, was to leverage you. And you know that. And that's, there's no news there. Their desire to leverage you was tantamount, I'll get the word, tantamount to going after Donald Trump. And so what they did, push the boundaries. Did they do what this current DOJ does? No, they did not go that far. But they did do some things that I thought, see, I've always questioned the DOJ. I think scrutiny of what they do is, and how they do it, we need more of it. And we need congressional oversight on that. And we need to take that seriously, because your case exposed one of the big problems that I've seen over 35, 40 years covering covering the DOJ, their ability to get away with stuff in the name of justice that you and I couldn't do and shouldn't be able to do as citizens. So what Comey did, I think the difference between them and now, I think they thought they were doing the righteous thing for justice. Today, there's no pretense. They're doing what they want for Donnie. And they were going after Donnie and using you to do it. And so I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump.
See, I don't think, I'm so sorry, Brian, but I don't think Comey was doing anything for righteousness.
See,
he was doing it for himself. He is a legacy whoremonger. He is somebody who saw himself. I always describe him as, an overgrown Boy Scout, right? Walking the halls of Washington, thinking that, he has a badge and, that he is a politician.
He is justice. He had the opinion that he is justice. That the difference, maybe it's a subtle difference that makes no difference, but at the end of the day, he always thought, like you said, he was a Boy Scout, and boy, I was a Boy Scout. And let me tell you, I didn't like the kind of Boy Scouts that Comey was. You didn't want to play sneaky peek with that guy. So, but here's the thing: in talking and seeing how the DOJ used to run, they always had the blinders on that they were going for justice. There is no blinders on now. They're going for Donald. Donald has exposed the dark.
You're right. Donald took the blinders off, and he said, listen, it's been bullshit. Yeah, you put the blinders on to give you some sort of a arm's length, deal, a transaction,
or moral superiority somehow.
Exactly. For moral righteousness. All right.
Yeah.
The truth is, they were fake blinders. The blinders were made of, say, plastic, so you could see through them anyway, right? Trump just turned around and said, I'm not putting on this fucking facade. I'm taking them off, and I'm going to do whatever I want. James Comey is a prick, all right? James Comey tried to fuck up my presidency from day number one. And you know what? James Comey should be indicted for what he did. Now, That, of course, we leave up to DOJ, and, we see how that's, panning out. But I actually want to ask you, in furtherance of all this, assuming this case proceeds to a trial, what do you think the message that it's sending to government employees, to journalists again, to, to whistleblowers, or any American for that matter, who dares to speak out, to be a critic of anybody in this administration?
It says bend over and take it up the ass either way, because we're going to drill you. If you bend over for us, well, we'll
drill, baby, drill. We're going to be drilling.
We're going to drill like we've never drilled before. No one has ever drilled like we've drilled. People say I drill. He'll drill you in the ass if you bend over for him, and he'll give you a reach around. The difference will be you're not getting that reach around if you oppose him. Either way, you're going to get screwed. Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about, and you know this as well as I do. He doesn't give a shit about the rule of law. He cares about himself and himself only. He's using Comey again to further his own benefit, further his own ends. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump will use whatever is in that little bag of tricks that he has, and he will use them as hard and as long as he can to drill you as hard and long as he can. All the best people do it. I'm just saying, that's
But
Donnie.
in all fairness, James Comey did the exact same thing. James Comey did the same thing. The only difference, and you are so right, my brother, James Comey never had the power that the president has.
Right.
He never had the ability to wield both a sword and a shield at the same time. And I believe, and I do truly believe it, that all of these folks that Trump has named, from Tish James to Bragg to Jack Smith to Adam Shifty Schiff, I believe each and every one of them are going to face, to some degree, the same things that I did.
Yeah, well, I think he's going to try and torture anybody he wants as long as he can. The question is, for me, there's a lot of questions that leave this open-ended as to how much suffering we're going to go through. Does Donald Trump live to be, 200, like, Dr. Ronnie said he would? Number two, and he won't. Number two, does he make it through this? We have 1,213 days left to go in this administration. How many of them?
No, Brian. No, what we really have is 1 year. The midterm elections are the single most, and I say it and people are turning around, and I can't stand when the ignorant want to try to correct you. This upcoming midterm election is ultimately what will decide whether or not we have a constitutional republic or we have a constitutional dictatorship.
Okay, I'm going to be ignorant and correct you and say that it will determine whether or not we can hold on to that constitutional republic, that democracy. Right now, Donald Trump is putting troops in the street. He wants you to get used to seeing the National Guard in the street. Why? Well, there's this wild speculation, and it's not, I think to some extent it's true, is he wants to make sure in those cities, mostly blue, that he is able to suppress the vote so that they do not, and that's why they're gerrymandering districts. But I got news for him there too. There are people who voted for him in 2024, and I've been out in Texas, Iowa, Nebraska, very red states that are not happy with Donald Trump right now for a variety of reasons. He keeps telling us that gas is low. It's not. He keeps telling us that eggs are cheaper. They're not. He lies to them about, and it's the Jeff Epstein. That's the one thing that really the right and the left both agree on is, Donald Trump campaigned on the fact that the Jeff Epstein case was a deep state cover up, and he was going to uncover it, and he hasn't. So now those people, once you've bought into the conspiracy, now you think Donald Trump is part of it. There are people that are looking for something other than Donald Trump to vote for. What does it say about the Democrats that they cannot come up with somebody better than the most loathsome individual to ever hold the presidential seal in his hand. And if Donald Trump could sell that seal for money, he'd do it. And then he'd get a trophy and place it on his desk as long as it was gold.
So let me ask you, because look, we're looking right now down the barrel of a government shutdown again. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where again, it's good to be right. Now, I'm not going to lie. I've been cleaning up pretty well on Prize Picks this year. This week, I'm looking at the board and I'm selecting Patrick Mahomes for more than 2 passing TDs. Prize Picks, it's simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Play Prize Picks to get action on football in more than 40 plus states, which include California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks, it's the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So you want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, but only on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in just 1 click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, how you play, it's up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. So no matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So go now and download the Prize Picks app today and use code Cohen, COHEN, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code Cohen, COHEN, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. You know, the question, if I was on television, and I'm so thankful, you know, that Mea Culpa has now surpassed 500 million downloads, meaning enough people are listening to us that this is making a difference. So the question that I want every single person to go and to repeat the same way Republicans do over and over and over again. How could we be looking at a government shutdown if tariffs have brought in $17 trillion in new money in just 9 months? 17 trillion would amount to about just under 60% of our GDP, which is 27.2 trillion a year. More than 2.5, it's about 2.5 times that of number 2, China. So why are we even looking at a government, why are we even looking at a government shutdown if in fact we are doing so well? Tariffs are the cure. Tariffs are it.
Yeah. The better question really, and that's a great question, apply it this. Why are we looking at that shutdown with the tariffs coming in and the Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate? The reason why is because there are Republicans in the House and the Senate and Democrats who understand how truly fucked we are. And the fact is that you could get a clean continuing resolution, a clean CR is what they call it, for 6 months that would establish the spending patterns as they are now. By the way, the truth of the matter is we haven't really done a real budget for years. It's just these resolutions that they pass in the House and the Senate, and they agree on to keep things going. The thing is that the Democrats want there to be certain, they want to make sure that you hold on to your health care and your Social Security. And the Republicans want to pass a clean resolution that doesn't address those issues. And so you're not going to get, a government shutdown is imminent, but the frightening part of this is what Politico and the Washington Post reported yesterday is that Donald Trump has sent out a memo to all the available people working in the federal government, all the agencies, that if to prepare for layoffs. And once they get money back in, don't bring some of these people back. So they're going to use the government shutdown to fire more people that Doge couldn't get rid of. And then they're going to be facing 2 or 3 months down the line the fact that they can't operate, and they're going to have to bring some of these people back. This is a further destruction of the federal government. Like I said, Donald Trump will simply burn it all down and govern over the ashes, and the Republicans have no balls. They will not stand up to him, though. And look, I've talked to dozens of them. I mean, Michael, dozens of Republicans who say, I don't agree with this, but I got to go along with it because the president wants it. And my question is, did you put your nuts in a blind trust? When you took the oath to uphold when you got elected, did you just to say to hell with the United States, I'm in it for me and me only? Because that's what it looks like. And the fact is that if we don't have the money coming in, the tariffs are a tax on the United States, on the citizens of the United States, which is why the economy is suffering, why the prices are so high, and the Republicans will not push back against Donald Trump, therefore bringing us to another government shutdown, the last one of which we had the last time this moron was in office.
Hey, let me ask you this then, because I always say, you need to, with Americans, you need to speak in simplicity, with simplicity.
Yes.
And as it relates, this is where I have such anger towards the DNC, towards Ken Martin, very much the same as you and I had talked about with Jamie Harrison, another worthless, feckless fucknut. Here's the thing. Why not start putting shit out? Tariffs are taxes. 3 words, which is everything Trump does, right? Lock her up, build the wall, mass deportation now, just drill, baby, drill. I mean, everything Trump does is 3-word slogans.
Drill, baby, drill. Yeah.
Consumers pay tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. And how, Brian, you know how I can prove it to you very simply?
You don't have to.
Take a look, but you are the consumer. You are the American consumer that is paying this tariff. Let me ask you this. The last time you went into your big box store, your Walmart, or you bought from Amazon or Costco or Myers or whatever it might be, are you or are you not paying more right now today than you were 6 months ago?
Of course you are.
Well,
but here's
there's
the thing.
The answer.
Yeah, but you are the second person in a day who has mentioned this, and I will put it to you this way. No matter how low the Republicans go, the Democrats have a hard time crawling over that bar.
Yep.
Their communication is lacking. It is just horrible. Donald Trump, I remember when the Biden administration passed the infrastructure bill, right? The $1 trillion, which was a bipartisan bill.
Bipartisan, yep.
And it was it showed what we can do as a country when we work together. It was probably the most important piece of legislation in the last 25 years. And it still is paying dividends to this day. We did not go into a recession after COVID because of that bill. We put people to work. We paid for it. It's still paying dividends, right? But people didn't see it that way because Donald Trump was out saying that, whatever he was saying. And I went to the Biden administration and I said, why aren't you all talking about this more? Well, we mentioned it once. I said, what you don't understand is whatever air, whatever oxygen in the room you don't take, Donald Trump will take, and he will hammer you over the head with innuendo and lies while the facts are just sitting on the bench, not doing anything. And there are people who want the Democrats to do a daily briefing from the Capitol to push back, to your point, to push back against Donald. They want the Democrats talking more, but they don't do it. And for the love of God, I don't know why. You are in a fight for this isn't a game. This is our lives on the line due to a crazy son of a bitch in office. And I'm telling you, brother, from having covered him in the first administration and this administration, if you want to say that Joe Biden slid into senility Donald Trump took the ice water plunge into it. This guy's nuts. He's not anywhere near as smart or as fast on his feet as he used to be. They ask him about Charlie Kirk, and he starts talking about he starts talking about the ballroom he wants to be buried in. He will not leave that White House until they have to wheel his ass out in a coffin into that fucking, ballroom that he once built, and they charge $1,000 a day for you to see him lying in state. So
let me say this, because a lot of people are questioning his mental acuity. They're questioning his health. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, not secondhand, not third, firsthand.
Me too.
There is no deficit. All right. What he is right now is completely empowered to do whatever he wants because
Agreed.
He is controlling all levers of government. He has the legislative branch locked up between the House and the Senate, right? Bowing to every whim that he wants, for the most part. He's got the judiciary now under control, and he also has the Supreme Court. So he is basically running this country the same exact way that he ran the Trump organization.
Yes.
His word is dicta, and anybody that tries to question what he says, be it right or wrong, doesn't make a difference. You will feel the wrath of Trump and his administration.
You're right. But there is one difference, I think, is that I believe that what you see now is, I remember you would talk to him and say, "Oh, Donald, you can't do this." You would confront him with,
and he would listen.
Would listen. Here's the thing. No one is telling Donald Trump no now. In fact, there was a time, this is maybe 6 weeks ago, in the Oval Office, when he was questioned by a reporter about losing a Supreme Court case 9-0. And he said, "No, we won that, right, Stephen?" And he turns to Stephen Miller. And Miller says, "Oh, yeah, absolutely." The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump hears no negative words. He doesn't hear anyone challenging him anymore. He is controlled by those underneath him so that he can play to his worst demons and they get what they want. There are people holding his leash now, not allowing him to hear the words that he needs in order to make a decision. And the fact is they're far more dangerous than Donald is. Stephen Miller is probably the most dangerous man on the planet, and also one of the most feckless individuals I've ever met in my life. He literally ran away from me on 2 occasions in the White House when I tried to ask him questions. I mean,
wow, too bad you should have videotaped that.
We do have it. We played that somewhere. I mean,
I'll send it to me. I want to put it on my Substack.
Yeah, I got to dig that one. But and so that's the difference between then and now.
Yeah. So look, since we're talking about Stephen Miller, obviously Stephen Miller is the one who produced, wrote, at least the bulk of it, that fantastic Trump United Nations speech the other day. In it,
that you Trump, said that with a straight face. In
it, Trump literally attacked all 193 countries in attendance. He attacked the United Nations itself, went on to an entire diatribe of how years and years ago that he bid $500 million within which to refurbish the United Nations. He would have put in marble. They used terracotta. They used plastic. He would have used mahogany wood. He then goes on in front of the world to complain about the escalator and the teleprompter. Immediately, Fox News, enablers, surrogates, sycophants, members of the administration, they come up with the term sabotage. And as somebody who is in that world, every single day you receive what's called the talking points memo. If you are going to be a surrogate on television, if you are speaking to the press and so on, use the word sabotage. Use the word Daddy Trump. And I bring up Daddy Trump because they also claim that all the world leaders now are referring to Donald as Daddy Trump.
Yeah, that's not, they're calling him Puff Donnie, but see, the fact of the matter is, all right, facts matter. And in Donald Trump's case, facts don't matter. He doesn't care what the facts are. He's going to tell you what he wants. All of that is this distraction from the fact that he made a complete ass of himself in the United Nations. It's not the first time. I went back and dug up something I wrote 8 years ago about Donald Trump when he appeared before the United Nations for the first time, and he talked about North Korea, and he talked about some of the very same things that he talked about in this address before the United Nations. It was eerily similar. Donald Trump is incapable of doing anything in front of a group of people he doesn't like that would in some way make him feel uncomfortable. He went out there to attack them. He's always viewed the United Nations as an enemy. So he's out there doing to the United Nations what he has done to all of his other enemies. Here's the bad part for us. They're laughing at us. And he won't let you see that. And he doesn't want you to know that. But the rest of the world looks, I mean, I'm not kidding. I do know people that were sitting in that audience who said, I'm not going to hell. I'm not going anywhere near Washington, D.C. Donald Trump said and what a masterclass for diplomacy. You want to get the world working together with you. So what do? You insult them and belittle them. That doesn't win friends and influence people.
You're
and
sure right. It brings me to a follow-up. I have to ask you. Then how does the world process a president who treats global diplomacy like a reality TV meltdown? It's like a Housewives episode.
Yeah, well, they are ignoring him, and they're going about doing what they have to do to get their things done. Look, Donald Trump wasn't wrong about one thing, and I'll give him this. When he talks about if you want to battle Russia, you got to quit selling him oil or buying oil from him and shit like that. He's not wrong. But how's he going to get people to do that when he's insulting them? He's not. And the fact of the matter is, and Michael, this is probably the most important issue that we're dealing with today. Donald Trump has brought us to the point of brinkmanship with Russia, a point that we have not been at since the early Cold War. He has said now that Ukraine can win back everything and maybe more, an implied threat to Putin, because he believes he can now leverage Putin, because he has seen the economic dire problems finally that Russia is going through, and thinks he can be the leverage and overthrow his mentor, Vladimir Putin.
Well, did you see what Zelensky then turned around and said? He literally issued Zelensky for the first time in 3.5 years since this war started. And I want to be crystal clear to my audience. Zelensky did not start it. It was started by Vladimir Putin in Russia. Zelensky issued a warning. He turned around and he said, unless you stop the war right now, right frickin' now, you need to notify the citizens of Russia, of Moscow, that there is an imminent attack coming. Meaning he must know that he now has full authority within which to continue to blow up pipelines, which they've been doing, but to actually now target Moscow the same way that Moscow is targeting Kiev and Kharkov and so on.
And where do you think that leads us? Right in smack dab in the Putin has already taken drones and flown them over Poland. He's testing NATO. Poland, Romania, he has already tested them. What this tells you is, again, this is brinkmanship. And I remind everyone, go look at a movie called The Day After from 1983, after which it was a TV movie, after which there was a discussion during which Carl Sagan coined the term nuclear winter. We're still sitting on a shitload of nuclear bombs. Donald Trump seems to think that this is a game, and Putin has said he's got his finger on the trigger. This is not a game. It is not. This is our existence. And I'm not in any way inferring that Donald Trump should back down from Putin. I'm just saying he's not the man who can handle Putin. And I'm telling in the position that we're in, Donald Trump is a wholly unserious man dealing with very serious issues that he cannot handle. And no one under it. Pete Hegseth, the defense, the war minister, who had spent, how much did he spend on a fucking makeup room in the Pentagon? Like we need that during a war, and having reporters sign NDAs so they don't report what's going on in the Pentagon. These are not people that we need in charge of the country right now, and it's frightening that they are.
Well, you bring me up to my last question, because as I said before, the hour goes by very, very quickly. I could sit and bullshit with you for hours.
Oh, we could have a drink and enjoy ourselves.
That's true. Look, obviously, you've witnessed a lot. You, again, were so vital to my to the creating of my second New York Times bestseller, Revenge. You've now seen media suppression. We just saw it with Jimmy Kimmel. ABC, Disney felt the full squeeze of the FCC. But nevertheless, Jimmy Kimmel is back. Not because ABC, Disney did the right thing. Not because the FCC pulled back. But because of us. Because we turned around and we said, this is unacceptable. This is like what you helped me to uncover in Revenge when they unconstitutionally remanded me back to Otisville, bringing me up to 51 days of solitary confinement because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional rights. So the final question I really want to ask you, deja vu from your help with me in the book Revenge, this media pressure, this DOJ era media pressure, do you believe that this is pure and total intimidation? And do you think that we're going to ever get past it? And what do we need to do to get past it?
Well, I wrote a book I'll plug called Free the Press, which will tell you how to get past it. First of all, we have to bust up media monopolies. Every president since Ronald Reagan, every Republican, every Democrat has engaged in destroying the free speech that we enjoy and the First Amendment that allows us to report on our government. You need to bust up media monopolies. There are 6 companies that own or operate 95% of what you see, read, or hear. They are in cahoots with government to make more money. We're going to soon see that number of companies whittle down to about 4, right? Nexstar wants to buy Paramount, which was just sold out from under Sherry Redstone, who got government approval to do it. Sinclair owns way too many television stations and can influence. It used to be limited, the number of television stations you could own to 7. Not anymore. You used to be limited in the number of newspapers. Not anymore. And here's a fact that everyone needs to understand. And I'll also plug that the documentary is called Trump 2, and it outlines some of these First Amendment problems that we have. And
who's your top star in that docu?
There is a great guy named Michael Cohen that we talked to, and that guy.
Booyah!
In that, it's wonderful. And so, documentary streaming soon to a theater, streaming soon to a service near you. And I think Midas is going to help us distribute it. So here's the key thing that you need to understand: 45, and this is a study by the University of Chicago released last year. 45% of the counties in this country do not have a local media. None. No local journalism, no newspaper, no radio station, no television station. 45, that's nearly half the counties in this country. And in those counties, 91% of them went for Donald Trump in 2024, and most of them by a landslide. When you have an uneducated, uninformed electorate, you have unilaterally bad decisions. To change this, invest in slap legislation, strategic lawsuits against public participation. That's what Donald Trump used against Paramount. He sued him umpty-dumpty billions of dollars, knowing full well that he would never win that suit, but using it as leverage. That is, you've got to have anti-slap legislation. There is a bill in Congress by Jamie Raskin and I think Jim Jordan right now, the Free Press Act. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation to allow reporters to have confidential sources so that they don't go to jail when they get facts on the down low. You need to bust up the media monopolies, and you need to give tax breaks to small companies that own media, because without a free press, this is not a free country. And you're right. Your pressure that happened to you is a byproduct of the last 40 years of suppression of free speech. They talk about the free press. It doesn't exist. Has anyone been in the White House briefing room lately? It's merely reporters sitting there telling Donald Trump how wonderful he looks as he shoots rainbows out of his ass. That's not reporting. You have to hold its truth to power. Holding them accountable, whether you like them or not, is the job. And I always go back to what Ben Bagdikian said, and by God, it's so freaking true, and I wish we had it today. He said, Ben Bagdikian was the editor at the Washington Post, who said, quote, "Never forget that your obligation is to the people. It is not at heart to those who pay you, or to your editor, or to your sources, or to your friends, or to the advancement of your career. It is to the public." That's what he said then. It's equally good now, and we don't do it.
Well, Brian Karem, thank you, my brother.
Always a pleasure.
Always, always, always great talking to you, my friend. And I will certainly be speaking and seeing you very, very soon.
And I'll remind everyone to see the documentary and look at the Substack. It's called Reporter's Notebook on Substack, and weekly column in Salon.
Love it. Thanks, Brian.